Okay, so here we go. This is part 3 of our PATH training, P.A.T.H. So P was for passion, A was for attitude, and T is for teamwork. And then our very last one, H, is for honor. So we're on T for teamwork. So we're at the top of the hill, and we're now going downhill. So we are almost done with this training. It literally takes about 2 hours each time, and we've been doing it every other month. So we've been at this now for quite a while, but we're almost done. It's been good stuff though, right?
Oh yeah.
Learn a lot.
Today's date?
Yeah, today's the 10th. The 10th of January, 2015. Gosh. Time flies. Okay, so quick recap from last time we met. We did go over the A in attitude. There's some bullet points of some paragraphs of kind of what each section was that we went over. The first one was that, like a pilot has a indicator in the cockpit called the attitude indicator. He has to check that often to see how high or how low his altitude is. We have to check our attitude as well, because our attitude will determine how high we soar when working in the children's ministry, or how low we will soar, which is in danger of crashing. The second part, we talked about how we can sanctify a bad attitude. Some good things to start. The first one was starting a habit of seeking joy instead of having a bad attitude. Number 2 was surrender the moment to God. Number 3 was serve the body of Christ. And number 4 was to support the team. And it was a really good experience. I'm kind of shared with you guys how sometimes I do get in a bad attitude sometimes. My wife has to always say, how's your heart? Check your heart. And it's basically surrendering that moment. And then the last part of attitude of our last section was, what comes out of you when you get bumped. Kind of like these drinks on the table right here. If I was to aggressively bump this table, whatever's inside these cups is what's going to spill out. Coffee, water, whatever, tea. And what comes out of us when we get bumped. The Bible says that whatever's in the heart, the mouth speaks. And so we want to make sure that when things don't go our way and someone rubs us the wrong way and we get bumped, what's going to come out of our mouth? Is it going to be good stuff, or is it going to be not so good stuff? So today is the T for teamwork, and the theme verse is Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 through 10. In the ESV version, it says, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift his fellow. But woe to him who is alone, because when he falls, he has no one to lift him up. And I feel sorry for that one guy. This is really cool. So this is starting us out for teamwork. How many of you guys have ever been to San Francisco before? Mm-hmm. Everybody but me. Woo! No. Anyway, so San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge, in case you guys didn't know, it basically has all these cables that hold up the bridge. From a far away perspective, you think that that's just one giant cable. Each cable is one giant cable. It's actually not. Each giant cable is actually 27,572 mini cables that stretch out to over 7,600 feet. And together they weigh over 24,000 tons. One main cable.
One cable is 24 tons.
Yep.
27,570.
That's a lot. Put them all together in the end, and they'll reach over 80,000 miles. That's teamwork, because those cables are definitely holding up a bunch of weight. But this is what I like about it, is that in earthquakes it bends and it warps, but it never breaks.
Oh my gosh.
It's awesome. So, basically,
all the movies that show the Golden Gate Bridge getting destroyed by
Godzilla? Okay, but that's not an earthquake.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, maybe it wouldn't break so easily.
Maybe not. Maybe Godzilla really couldn't do it.
I think Godzilla would get tangled up in all the cables and trip over.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
That was the old Godzilla movie.
That
was a good one. All right, so basically, using that metaphor, how many cables are in our kids' ministry right now, and are they all holding together? Are they all holding up the same weight, or are they leaving one to carry the entire load by themselves? So we're going to talk about that. In Luke chapter 9, verses 12 through 14, Jesus even modeled teamwork with his disciples. It's the story of feeding the 5,000. So here's your first blank right here. In fact, if you read through the New Testament, many miracles were performed with others playing supporting roles. That's your first blank, supporting roles. It's not that Jesus couldn't do it himself, because we know that Jesus was the Son of God. He could do anything he wanted to. It's because he modeled teamwork for them by showing them that the teams have more creative potential than an individual. Teams have more creative potential than individuals. That's your second blank. And you guys probably know this, that a task gets done more effectively and efficiently in a team setting. Your next blank is a quote from Henry Ford, the guy who created Ford. He says, "Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, but working together is a success." And then another quote from someone that the author is unknown is that all of us are smarter than one of us. And that's what I love about our team, is that there's a lot of creative minds in this team. And, I can come up with some ideas that are great and some not so great, but I might not have thought of the same idea Lee might have thought of for the preschool class, or she might not have thought of an idea for the nursery class that Cindy would have. So all of us are smarter than just one of us. All right, this is really cool. These are building blocks for a dynamic team. Joshua chapter 1, verses 10 through 11 is the story where Joshua tells the children of Israel that they have 3 days to pack up everything they own and follow him out of the wilderness. And this is where they've been for 40 years, so they're getting ready to go into the promised land. And these are the responses straight from Joshua chapter 1, verses 10 through 11. They said to Joshua, "Whatever you've commanded us, we're going to do it." That's cooperation. So that's your next blank. Whatever you've commanded us, we're going to do it. Cooperation. Wherever you send us, we're going to go. That's flexibility. So cooperation and flexibility. Just as we fully obeyed Moses, and so we're going to obey you. That's commitment. So you got cooperation, flexibility, and commitment. This one's pretty cool. Whoever rebels against your word and does not obey them, whatever you command them, they're going to be put to death. That's loyalty. Luckily, we don't put anyone to death here in the children's ministry.
Wow.
And then the last one is only be strong and courageous. That's encouragement. So the children of Israel responded to Joshua when he was telling them what to do. Remember, he's the new leader. Moses was there and it now passed on to Joshua. They all pronounced together that it was going to be cooperation in their teams, flexibility, commitment, loyalty, and encouragement. And when we exercise these qualities ourselves, we're able to be a successful team, just like the children of Israel were successfully able to enter into the promised land. So here's 5 things a dynamic team does. The first one is that they advance unity. Advance unity.
Oh, okay.
Jesus prayed in John 17:21, "Father, let all of them be one, just as you and I are one." This is really cool. A pianist will tune a piano with a tuning fork. Once all keys are tuned, and if another piano needs tuning, he'll start all over again using only the tuning fork. He's never going to tune a piano based on another piano. And the reason why is because it's that single sole purpose of that tuning fork. That's when we as team members, with Jesus Christ dwelling inside of us, the Holy Spirit, who's that tuning fork, He unifies us and gives us that spiritual harmony we need. We may be different from our race, likes, dislikes, and habits and hobbies, but because we are all struck at the same pitch from inside with the Holy Spirit, we have unity in Him. That's your next blank. We have unity in Him. This last part just says that when we're on a dynamic team, we constantly seek to cooperate. It means staying in close contact with lots of give and take so that the awesome reality of our spiritual unity becomes the powerful reality of our practical working relationships. So it's just working together. Number 2, the second thing a dynamic team does is that they flex to meet changes. They flex to meet changes. Changing needs, yeah. Fishing poles, we need to be like them because they bend and they move under pressure, but they never break. Or at least not most of the time. I've seen a few of them pop. But when you think about it, those fishing poles do some crazy acrobatics with everything, trying to stand the pressure and the weight that they're pulling, but most of the time they accomplish the task at hand. Yeah, so we need to be like that. We need to actually flex to meet the changes that are needed. And our team does a pretty good job of that. I have to say, they do an amazing job of that. Why is it true that we need to flex? Because all teams at some points, they face adversity. And the key dealing with that effectively is flexibility. And we're not talking about, can someone do a back handspring? We're talking about flexibility as a team. This has actually happened before, multiple of these situations with me in the time I've been in children's ministry, is that a team member may leave. They may just say, I'm done. or a team member may choose not to remain loyal to the mission any longer. In each case, good teams will stretch through the hard times, and I've seen it time and time again. When someone does want to leave or someone just doesn't want to do what is required of them to do, the rest of the team kind of comes together and picks up that slack. Here's another bridge story. It's a bridge in Japan. It's the longest bridge in the world today with cables up to 12,828 feet and a cross-section of 290 mini cable strands, each strand 127 wires making up each mini cable. And in 1995, there was a 7.2 level earthquake. Not only did this bridge remain undamaged, but extended itself actually 4 feet to meet the need when it was met with adversity. So today the bridge is still functioning well, it's just 4 feet longer.
How on earth?
Yeah, crazy, right? When hit with adversity, the bridge stretched to meet the demand placed on it. So a question that I kind of just wrote down to ask you guys just to think about, do you think our ministry is one that stretches to meet the demands placed on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our team does a really good job. What about you as an individual? When working with peers, family, or friends, do you feel more like a bridge that is heavily cemented in place or one that's held up by others around you? Kind of like what we were just talking about, your 3, 12, and 72. One will crash and fall when hard times hit it, and the other will stretch and bend. I don't know about you, but I really want to be that bridge that stretches and bends and not collapses. All right, the third thing a dynamic team does is that they stay focused. Stay focused. There's an old saying that says if you chase 2 rabbits at the same time, both of the rabbits are going to escape. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that saying before. But we need to be focused on what's at hand because we need to just chase after one rabbit. I can actually say that that's true because growing up in Midland, I had a dirt bike, and there was a big field in front of our house. And I would go out there with my friend. He was on a 4-wheeler. I was on a dirt bike, and we would just be driving in that field since it belonged to his parents. And jackrabbits would just scurry out from underneath tumbleweeds when they saw us or heard us drive by. Well, we would chase them. Well, there was multiple rabbits, and of course, if we tried to chase all of them at the same time, they were all going to get away from us. Even though one of the rabbits would still get away from us. It was just fun chasing one. But if our focus wasn't on just one, we would have been all over the place and probably crashed and each other. So you got to stay focused. Your next blank for that stay focused is the dangers of losing your focus is this. It's becoming apathetic, which is I don't care. And this isn't just for children's ministry. It's any area of your life. When you lose your focus, you become apathetic. You become disoriented or unorganized and dull. Loss of passion, dull. So you become apathetic, disoriented, and dull when you lose your focus. And as a ministry, we need to stay focused on our focus, if that makes any sense. We got to stay focused on our focus.
And what is the focus?
Like a goal.
A goal, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we covered in one of our last sessions. But Sojourn's, I guess their theme, their mission statement is making disciples that make a difference. Well, when we start just doing things just to do things, even Pastor Terry and some of the other pastors have already had this conversation, is that they're like, okay, are we having too many get-togethers at the church just to have them, or are we doing this to actually do it? So they're very strategic in what they're doing, and same with the children's ministry. We got to stay focused on our goal, and that sometimes goes all the way just to the basics, like stay focused on keeping the kids the center of attention instead of talking to each other in a classroom. Stay focused on cleaning the room the way it's supposed to instead of doing a halfway job, you know? So you just have to stay focused on the goal at hand. And the fourth way a dynamic team comes together is that they value one another. They value one another. There's probably no more admirable quality of a team of friendship than personal loyalty, and that's your next blank, personal loyalty. Loyalty displays how much we value each other, and I'm sure you guys can agree with this next blank, is that the number one thing that can break the bond of loyalty in any team or friendship is gossip. I'm sure we've all had experiences with gossip before. Gossip is a breach of trust that is so difficult to overcome among team members. Someone's always going to get hurt with gossip. Your next blank is actually a scripture verse. God is clear in His Word that He despises gossip, and He actually gives us a formula to go by when someone does us wrong, and it's in Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. Matthew 18:15. Does anybody kind of have a hint of what that is? Basically, when someone does something wrong against you, you go to them personally. That's right, Cindy, you got it. You go to them personally. Get it. Let's get this thing taken care of instead of just letting it fester. My mom taught me a very hard lesson when I was a kid. I don't even remember what I did to not earn her trust, but I think I lied to her in some situation, and I had to earn her trust back. And it took a very long time. It took a very long time. It was very difficult. It wasn't impossible. It was just a very long time. And so because I didn't show her that loyalty, I lost her trust, and I had to gain that back over time. So it's just something that's like loyalty and trust is something that we definitely want to keep in our team. And it's something that's valued a lot. All right, the fifth and final thing a dynamic team does is that they play together. This is my favorite. They play together. This is why at trainings and stuff like that, I always try to have something fun because it's children's ministry, first of all. It's supposed to be outgoing and fun. But playing together is something that's great. It's a chance to think outside of the box. And in the time that I served one summer as an intern at CFNI, I served at Youth for the Nation, so YFN. Even before I served as an intern there, my church went there when I was a youth. And one of the things that they do every morning after morning chapel is that they have this thing called the Nation Games. So basically you go to the team or the nation that you're assigned to when you first get there, and y'all run out to the field way outside, and this is in the heat of summer. I don't care if it's morning or not. It's already like over 100 degrees. It's Texas we're talking about. And so me, including a whole lot of other kids, hated the Nation Games because it was hot. The games were childish. You know, you're in that stage of youth to where you're all like, I'm too young to be in kids' church, and so I'm too cool to be in kids' church, but I'm too young to really be in like youth group and talk about really, really youthy things. So we hated the Nation Games. But one thing I did find, especially being an intern and working in the Nations Games, encouraging the kids to actually get involved, is that as the week progressed, the walls and the barriers that the kids had built around their hearts started coming down because they were playing together. They started to build trust with each other because there's just something that when you play with each other in a fun environment, trust just seems to rise up, and the barriers of I'm too cool for this or I'm too old for this starts tearing down, which later time in the evening times when we had an evening service and then a ministry time, I mean, those walls were already broken down, and so it was that much easier to then reach into these kids' lives and just really pray for them. So that's one thing I really love about playing together, is that it just is a very strategic thing to really build a relationship, build up loyalty, build up trust, regardless of how you might feel at the first of it. So
Families don't always do that. And
No, they
I
don't.
found a family that did play together. So it was like, you know, I didn't even know how. Basically, or want to do puzzles or cards, or, you know, we just didn't do that. So it didn't make a strong family.
yeah. And I can on the other side of that coin, my parents and my family did play games a lot together. We had family game nights, and it wasn't necessarily scheduled like every Friday's family game night, but because I was homeschooled, me and my sister, rather it was in the middle of the day with my dad or at nighttime with both of my parents, I mean, we played Uno a lot. We made up our own rules of Uno, and it became a really extensive game instead of just going around the table with colored coordinated cards. I mean, it was really great. We played marbles. We played Phase 10. We played, my dad taught me 52 card pickup. I mean, all this stuff. Yeah. So it does. Playing games and in a family is strategic. And we are a family here at the church. So, all right. Encouragement is what you need in order to have a dynamic team. Here's your next blank. Your attitude towards others actually shapes what they become, if you didn't know that. Our attitudes towards others actually shape what they become, especially those who are younger than you, and especially the kids. You know, our attitude to them really shapes who they can become. And every day we face the choice to either build up or tear down those around us. 1 Thessalonians 5:11, it says, encourage one another and build each other up. And then the Bible says also that a kind word brings joy to the heart, and that we are to speak only, in Ephesians 4:29 says, what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Lee, were you here on Wednesday night with Dudley Hall? Okay, so one of the things that Dudley Hall really spoke about was his first part of Living Prayer, his series on Wednesday nights, and it was really great. And I've just been chewing on it and meditating on it all week. Was really about how you have communication skills. And one of the things he says is that when you're basically your communication skills with people is a reflection of your communicating skills with God. So if you don't take time to actually listen to someone when they're talking to you and to talk to them and build them up according to their needs, like this verse says, then you're more opposed to, when you talk with God, to only tell him what you need instead of asking the Father, hey, Lord, what's on your heart today? So just had to throw that in there. Here's something really cool too, because again, this is about other people's needs. This is a quick story. Not too long ago, 2 men were taking a coffee break at work. One guy always complained about how much money it took to raise his son. The cost of clothes, braces, gifts, $20 here, $50 there, the whole thing. Finally, after several months passed, the other man said, you know, my wife and I haven't spent a dime on our son ever since he was killed in a car wreck years ago. So in light of all the blessings that we have, what do you need to say that you're thankful for? Who is it that you need to reach out to and personally thank? See, our attitude shapes people. And sometimes we don't know in that situation what's going on. I mean, this guy's complaining about his son, but yet the other guy would just be grateful if his son was even alive. So people blossom under affirmation and they wilt under criticism. And I'm definitely one of those people that wilt under criticism because my love language is words of affirmation. So if I don't get words of affirmation or if I get criticism but you don't affirm me afterwards, I'm a wilting flower, buddy. I'm going down. So every time you appreciate the people around you, sorry, here's your next blank, you raise their value. Sorry. You raise their value. You honor them, you build the team, and you build the kingdom. You raise their value, you honor them, you build the team, and you build the kingdom. All right, the next 4 things are just for reflection. It's quiet time about that section. Melody actually does that a lot. She, like the very next day, she's in quiet time and she's writing down all these questions and answers. It's pretty cute. All right,
About
next
what?
section.
Where'd that come from?
The reflection thing right there.
Okay.
So after each section, there's a few questions that you can just
Sure.
ask yourself and think about in your quiet time. Melody's pretty good about popping the workbook back out, and she'll go through those questions and actually fill them out. All right, number 8 about teamwork. This one's pretty good. This is what are you saying? This one's going to teach us in the first section levels of communication, and in the second section of this part in number 8, we're going to focus on something important. Sometimes passes us by, and it's the crucial effect of nonverbal communication. So here's your first blank for this one: is the most effective approaches with others. The most effective approaches with others have to do with graciously confronting them. When we have to approach others, we need to graciously confront them. We have to be willing to compromise. And joyfully building consensus, if I said that right.
Joyfully?
Joyfully building consensus, which is agreement. I had to look that word up after a while.
Graciously confronting, willingly compromising.
Graciously confronting, willingly compromising, and joyfully building agreement.
I put them. Did you say graciously confronting them? So
That's totally fine, yeah. Graciously confronting people.
You put them in the blank.
I put them in the blank because he confused me.
Oh, sorry. I'm confusing myself. All right, we're going to talk about how we choose better communication. One reason why we need to hone in our communication skills, it's not that our team isn't good at this area, but our interactions with others can likely fall apart if we don't just get better at it. Again, this isn't just for children's ministry, it's just in our individual lives. And so as I was going over this section, I thought it was really timely that Dudley Hall this past Wednesday talked about communication skills. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Your next blank is this: most of our problems in communicating stem from our reluctance to be direct. Most of our problems in communicating stemmed from our reluctance to being direct.
Sometimes when you're direct, it makes problems.
Sometimes when you are direct, it does make problems. But being direct is not the same as being uncouth or impolite.
Oh, there you go.
Being direct is just something to where we can help remain polite and gracious and respectful. Here's a few hints. This is your next blank. When confronting others, use I statements, the letter I. So example, I'm really feeling hurt by your words versus you always attack me with your words. So instead of using the word you, use the word I. The next blank is this: restate what you hear before you reply. A lot of us have heard that, especially in marriage counseling and premarital counseling. Always restate what you hear. It's important to be clear and understanding. I'm working on this myself with Melody sometimes. So the example is, I want to make sure I'm understanding you right. You're saying da-da-da-da-da. To quote Rana, she says that a lot. Of which they can agree or reinstate what you what they need to. So always restate what they have said. The next one is practice reflecting for empathy. A lot of us, when we're listening to other people talk to us, we don't really listen because we're thinking about the next thing we already want to say. And that's what Dudley Hall said. He said, if that's how we are with people, that's sometimes how we are with God. So not all communication is confrontational. Sometimes we're required to lend a listening ear to the speaker rather than find a solution or give your best advice. What the speaker might be needing is immediate comfort from you. An example is so you're missing your son who's gone off to college. Is that it? So you're just reflecting for empathy. And when you do both of these things, you're hearing the other one, the communication just keeps going deeper. And one of the things we need to avoid in our communication is dirty fighting tactics. That's your next blank. Dirty fighting tactics.
So Lee, you better stop fighting Richard right now. No dirty fighting.
Dirty fighting. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, there are ways to fight fair and ways to fight dirty. Conflict surfaces in any relationship, and our responses are all different based on personalities, but you can move through conflict by avoiding the upper hand tactics. And that's what we mean by fighting dirty.
Trying to stay in control, keeping the upper hand.
Yep, keeping the upper hand tactics. And your next blank for those examples of upper hand tactics is using gross generalizations. An example is like you're always leaving the classroom in a mess and never doing your fair share of cleanup. So that's gross generalizations. Your next blank is attacking or changing the person instead of the problem. Example of that is that we need to finish before a certain time on Sundays. Can you not tell time? Which is then one of Melody's favorites is sinking to sarcasm. That's your next blank.
Not my favorite.
I know, that was sarcasm. Did you see what I did there?
Do you know what the root definition is of sarcasm?
What is the root definition of sarcasm?
Tearing of flesh. That is new.
Tearing of flesh. Ooh.
I'm writing that.
Yeah, you need to write that sucker down. Sarcasm, the root definition. What is that, like Greek definition or just definition in general?
No, it's like Greek, the original Latin, Greek, however.
The root word.
So the root word of sarcasm is the tearing of flesh. Golly.
Yeah, I can actually.
That's why I hate sarcasm so much.
That's why Melody hates sarcasm.
It's hateful. It's actually
It is right. It is.
Because you're tearing someone's flesh. You think you're being funny and laughing about yourself, but really you're tearing whoever you're joking about.
And on top of that, you're making it lighthearted.
Right.
Yeah, when it's
And
not
then
a
you're-
light.
Yeah, when you're making
it's
it
a
you're making it
double.
lighthearted
It's
when it's not a lighthearted situation.
Yeah.
And that's what
Some people can do sarcasm and it not be the tearing of flesh, but that's really rare because the people that I've known in the past who literally live by sarcasm, even in leadership, it tears people down. And it hurts. You walk away feeling like, what just happened? So an example of that is, yeah, right. You've been the greatest help to me. I can't think of anyone better. Please don't bother doing anything else at all.
Oh.
So that's sinking to sarcasm. This isn't in your notes, but you can totally write it down. If you've ever seen the Disney movie Bambi, one of Thumper's quotes is, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. That's what my mom always said to me growing up, and I'm still having to abide by that. All right, the author of this book, Leadership Essentials for Children's Ministry, he says this: when we as a ministry build each other up and build trust, our team will be unstoppable in what it can accomplish. A trusting, functioning, and communicating team will stretch to meet almost any challenge, kind of like those bridges we talked about. He goes on to say, we help each other when one falls down, and we work together to make a difference in the lives of the children and families that we serve. But whatever we do, we need to make sure we keep ourselves healthy by keeping our communication healthy. Because once that starts going downhill, our team will go downhill. Now, this is great. These are some great statistics. These are some great things for us to know. We're going to talk now about the nonverbal communication. So what aren't you saying when you're not talking? This is your blank, is nonverbal. So the most powerful form of communication is nonverbal communication. You're going to write a percentage in the next blank because it's actually 94% of the way we communicate. 94% of the way we communicate. You can hear talking, you can read writing, but can you interpret the signals of what people are giving you? Body language. Depends on what's happening.
Well, not just that, but your grid. If you're operating under your own hurts and woundings, then you're going to have a grid for when people they may be physically doing something, you're going to interpret it as one way when really they have no intention of being that.
Yep.
But so it also goes to what's your grid?
Yep, and we're going to be actually covering that in just a second. Perfect, because a lot of people are like, oh, okay, nonverbal is the way most of the time we communicate, but you're right, we need to know how to interpret those signals, because I could be reading your body language right now and thinking it's completely different than what you're actually trying to communicate.
Sure.
So it's
perfect example.
It really is an art on our part. We have to learn that. So what's your example?
In all the psychology type classes, in the any of those counseling type ministries, counseling, any of that, they're always talking about body language and stuff like that. And here's a common one. Mm-hmm. Arms crossed means they're closed off, shut off, blah, 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 blah.
Or tired or cold.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's a comfortable way to just stand because of my back. And so I do this, Randy, because there was one time I had my arms crossed like this, and I'm just sitting there, my face is just flat. I was listening, but I wasn't, smiling or anything. I was engaged in listening. And he thought I was totally upset, and he afterwards he totally read me wrong, and I'm like, no, I was just, my fingertips were kind of cold, and my armpits are kind of warm, and he was like, oh my gosh, and so now
he was worried the whole time.
I will intentionally mess with people, because I know they're reading me one way, and I'm like, oh, you're so off base, Just because your arms are crossed doesn't necessarily mean it can. Yeah, but
it's so funny you're saying that, because that's here in our notes too. Yeah,
oh, wow.
Yeah, about the arms being crossed. Well, another example is that I was homeschooled growing up, and so my mom was teaching me math one day in our classroom, and I hate math. Math is literally, I think, from the pits of hell. It just does not. It does not make sense at all. I mean, yes, basic math is totally fine. They always say growing up, you're going to use algebra in the real world. No, you don't. I don't care. Yeah, not in my world. People ask, well, never mind, I'm not going to go there. All right, so anyway, I was getting really upset. Back then, I really didn't know how to control my temper that well. And when you're homeschooled and it's your own parents, you have a tendency to be a little bit more lenient with your attitude when you're getting upset. So I was slamming my pencil down, slamming my book down, being frustrated at my mom. She's up there at the whiteboard writing stuff down, and she's trying to have patience with me. And I just lost my temper and everything, and the room got super quiet, and I'm looking at my book, and I look back up at my mom to see her reaction. At the exact moment, she threw the magic marker, and it hit me right dead between the face. Because
Did it mark you?
Didn't mark me, luckily, but I mean, she just threw it at me because I rolled my eyes at her. My bodily language is just being aggressive along with my words, and my mom just had enough of it. So the moral of the story is don't roll your eyes at your mom. So here's some important things about nonverbal communication, and rolling your eyes is one of those. Nonverbal communication means you're always talking. You're always talking. A quote here is that we're always walking billboards. So what are you advertising? God bless you. We're all walking billboards. So what are you advertising? Proverbs 15 verse 30 says, "Bright eyes gladden the heart." And that's nonverbal communication right there. Your eyes can gladden people's heart. A smile is the most inexpensive way to improve your look. And Proverbs 15:13 says, happiness makes a person smile, but sadness can break a person's spirit. So here's your next blank. You may think you're not talking, but communication begins the moment someone looks at you. Just like what Lee was just saying. She was just sitting there with her arms crossed, and she was clearly talking even when she wasn't using words.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2. Yeah, clearly talking what?
This is you. You have to be in constant communication with the Holy
That's
Spirit,
right.
because if you're not,
That's right.
you're reading things wrong. You're
Misjudge.
very apt to misread everything.
Yep.
So in our house, that's just kind of, we're constantly, that's just how, you have to be, because there have been times where I haven't said anything, and Richard's like, are you mad at me? And I'm like, no. And he goes, well, you didn't respond. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking about which is so opposite of how when we first started in marriage, I was totally instant responder to everything, and now I've become more contemplator, which is more like him, and it totally freaks him out. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking, and really, I'm going, okay, Lord, process this for me, because like my flesh may be reacting one way, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's right. So
Yeah.
what is the
I think
Yep.
it's getting more intense to have to do that
absolutely?
constantly in every situation, and to just
Yeah.
wait. Like that thing back there that said reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
It's at the moment you may just be listening and hearing, but then when I walk away or I get off the talking on the phone or whatever, and I just start thinking about what they said,
Yeah.
and let the Lord process it,
Yeah.
then it becomes clear. Things become more
Yeah.
clear. So it does take time, and it's just getting real.
Yeah.
It's important all the time now.
Yeah, really what Lee said was hitting the nail on the head, is that you really need to be in constant connection
Yes.
with the Holy Spirit
Right.
in order to decipher people's body languages.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to, especially as a leader, to misjudge something like that. I'm sorry. I don't know what's up. I'm drinking water, but it's not helping. All right, number 2.
Got some demons?
I hope not. I hope not.
We all have tennis shoes.
I got tennis shoes.
Tennis shoes.
Yeah.
All right. Nonverbal communication carries an emotional punch. Nonverbal communication carries an emotional punch. It's basically the explanation mark to verbal communication. So here's a short story. A 4-year-old boy once had an elderly neighbor who lost his wife. The little boy climbed over his fence and into his neighbor's yard, climbed into his lap, and just sat there. When his mom asked the little boy what he had said to the old man, the boy responded, "Nothing, I helped him cry." So even a child, especially in children's ministry, they can recognize nonverbal communication. It carries an emotional punch that often needs no words. Sometimes there are kids that come in our care that really just need to be held. Sometimes there are kids that come into our classroom that really just need to be prayed with. They're longing for that. And sometimes there are times, I think that's another reason, without really knowing it, that we added hand motions to a lot of our worship songs, because it's that nonverbal communication with your verbal communication. It really does help tear down walls for a lot of kids.
I thought we were just going Italian.
Do what?
We were just going Italian.
Just going Italian?
Italians talk with their hands.
Oh, yeah. I talk with my hands a
I'm heard
lot.
Italian, and there was a science experiment in school, and they were like, teacher was like, Lee, you talk with your hands a lot. Can you talk without moving your hands? And I'm like, yeah, I can. I stood up in class, and I think he had me put my hands behind my back, and I just totally went blank. I went, oh my gosh, I have to.
That's hilarious.
I have nothing to say.
I know.
I have nothing to say. All right, number 3, nonverbal communication is louder.
What was the last one?
That often needs no words. And then number 3 is nonverbal communication is louder. So, like Lee kind of said, it's kind of like when a pastor's up there preaching and he looks out into the congregation and he sees people with their arms crossed. Maybe their eyes rolled back a little bit. Maybe their heads are down. Or they're sitting with their phones out and they're just looking at their phones.
Oh dear.
So sometimes,
See, that's why I'm saying
yeah.
you can't.
So hold on. So it clearly communicates just from the first glance and without really in tune with the Holy Spirit, it clearly communicates that these people simply don't care what the pastor has to say and that their minds are elsewhere. Don't stay long on that because we're going to come back to it in like just a few short paragraphs. So body positions, facial expressions can make a humorous point. They can soften a tense moment, which is what I love to do. I love making humorous points. Or they can even show anger and boredom just as easily. So your next blank is this. It's not the issue on how well you tell a story, but how well you present the story.
I have to tell a little example, though, of the whole Bible app thing. One time in school, in our third year, we had a guest speaker, and our third year class
Oh, this
was
is so true.
it's smaller scale. Well, like 30 people as opposed to the other classes would be huge.
Yeah.
And so we had, he's an awesome, respectable person, very honorable person.
Just say his name.
Klaus Koop. He used to be the worship leader of Christ for the Nations. And so he's German, or I think like something like that.
Great guy.
He, awesome, godly man. And he was speaking on worship, and this was our worship class. And up in the front row, there was a kid that the whole time class was talking, he was on his phone. The whole time. Like, it looked like he was texting. And Klaus, like, would keep on looking at him and just keep talking and keep looking at him and keep talking. He actually interrupted his own lesson to say, dude, I'm so sorry. I really hate to point you out, but it really is distracting to me as a speaker to see you on your phone the whole time while I'm talking, and this is class time. And the kid was like, I'm taking notes on my phone. Like, and he showed it to me. He's like, I've been taking notes this whole time on my phone. And Klaus was instantly humbled and was like, I mean, he's such a humble guy anyways. He's like, dude, I am so sorry. And it was just so sweet to see how, like, immediately he was like, I really apologize. I really struggled with it in my heart, and I shouldn't have judged. And I have to remember this is our day and age now, that we take notes on our phones. And he apologized over and over again. And it was just still really, it was like a sweet, I don't know, it was funny, but it was really sweet.
It's a good example, though, of just that instant judgmental.
Yeah.
And even though it wasn't a bad judgmental, and like Melody said, he approached it in a very kind way.
He tried to be very kind and considerate, because I know it's embarrassing to point out someone.
Right.
But he thought he was just texting the whole 30 minutes that he had been there talking, and so anyway.
Well, which is perfect for point number 4, is that nonverbal communication is that much more believable.
It's much more believable.
Yeah, it's much more believable. And the famous quote, actions speak louder than words. Actions do speak louder than words. I can tell my wife that I love her all I want to, but if I don't hug her, kiss her, take her on dates, do things for her, that doesn't really show her that I love her. I can tell I love her all day long, and it can mean diddly squat to her. It's actions that speak louder than words. Someone once said, what you're doing is thundering so loud above your head, I can't hear what you're saying. Let's just hope that our words and our actions agree together. So what we say is just as loud as what we're doing. So don't become one of those people. Yeah, it took you a minute, huh? I saw your.
I was like, wait, where are we? And I'm like, so I thought I started reading this paragraph, and I'm like, oh, this is hilarious. Go ahead.
Next one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so here's a final hint about the pastor's up and he's talking and everything. You guys have already hit on this, but I'm gonna read it anyway. Never single out one nonverbal cue. Okay, so that's a really good hint for us as leaders. Never single out one nonverbal cue, and this is the reason why. The guy sitting in the congregation as the pastor's teaching and his hands are crossed, or he has his phone out as the pastor teaches. This may not mean that the person is bored and wishing he was somewhere else. It could mean that the person is cold, or that they're following along with their Bible app, or like Melody was saying in class, he was taking notes. So as a leader, this is your next blank, we need to look for several nonverbal cues and not just one.
That's good.
Several nonverbal cues and not just one. And listen to the Holy Spirit.
If you're offended, you have to ask yourself, why is that bothering me so much?
And that was one of the things Klaus even said. He was like, that was a big teachable lesson for me. Like, he
Yeah.
said, that was very humbling for me in front of all y'all to realize I was misjudging him the whole time.
Yes.
So, because the guy never looked up from his phone, and I think that's what just moved him more.
I
I think it was Nick. Was it Nick?
Probably. I don't know. He never would look up at him as if he was listening. He was constantly looking at his phone the whole time. But that's how he intently was taking notes.
I cannot take notes on my phone.
No, that
See,
Can't.
and I take notes on my phone.
I cannot do it.
Oh, not me.
And
It's weird. Anyway.
it is.
All right.
You have
The
to
new
be-
generation.
You have to be unoffendable. Pretty sure there's scripture in there.
Yep.
I don't know which one it is, but you have to be.
I
And
think-
if you are
yeah.
offended, you have to find out what. That's the 10
Exactly.
issues. We were talking about a ministry person, a receiver, and they had 10 issues that we needed to deal with, demonically. And a child overheard, not my children, but another child overheard the discussion and thought we were talking about tennis shoes.
Oh.
So now we always joke, oh, do you have tennis shoes?
Oh, that's hilarious. Instead of
10
tennis shoes.
issues.
Instead of 10 issues.
That's hilarious.
That's hilarious. Okay, I got what that was now.
Well, and let me just end the story this way. One of the things that Klaus didn't even say, he was like, I will never do that again. Like, he will never look down on someone who was on their phone and think that they were ignoring him. So
It was a
really
setup.
good
It was a
lesson.
setup because he's on the front row.
Exactly.
He's never looking up.
Exactly.
He's texting the whole time, and this is new.
Exactly.
Basically knew that anybody could take that much information to a note, to a phone.
Exactly.
Right.
And so it was a setup for
Exactly.
a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a good life
Teaching
lesson for
humility
all of us.
and
Yeah.
just
And it was exactly humility. It was really good seeing that.
You saw that in your teacher, and that was the awesome thing
Yeah.
too. It's just that really made a difference in your heart.
Yeah. So look for several nonverbal cues, not just one. Your next blink is this, a question we can constantly ask ourselves, not just as leaders, but just as godly individuals, is that, what am I saying when I don't open my mouth? What am I saying
I'm
when I
gonna start
don't
messing with
open my
people.
mouth?
Everyone's like this, I'll be like,
Yeah.
and when they're all like this, I'll be
They're going to be all like, that lady needs one of, that lady over there in the back row, she needs one of those white coats that make you hug yourself.
With a tight strap.
The really tight strap in the back. All right, communication is essential to the success of our team, and it involves much more than just words. Try these nonverbal techniques the next time you interact with parents, kids, and other members of the children's ministry team, even people at your own jobs, maybe even your own family members. Number one, nonverbal thing that you can try doing is smiling. Smile. Regardless of how your day is going, smile. The thought behind this is that the most inexpensive way to communicate goodwill to others and to improve your own looks as well is to simply smile. A verse that goes with that is Proverbs 15:13. Happiness makes a person smile, but sadness can break a person's spirit. And then the practical application is this. Be aware of your face this week, okay?
it's wrinkly.
Yep, be aware of your face this week. Lee, it's wrinkly. You have heard the expression, put a happy face on. We say it all the time to kids that we watch over. Hey, let me see your smile. The initial response a lot of the times is no.
No.
But after a while, that smile does come out. So bless someone this week by giving them the gift of your smile. So let's practice that tomorrow, definitely at church service too. It's all like, why do I want to smile at church?
People.
Lee's like, I just want to look angry, but I'm really happy.
I don't think I could look angry unless I'm angry, because I can and do get angry, and my children can tell when I'm angry, but I smile, that's just,
You smile while you're angry?
no,
Oh.
but my smile, it's easier for me to smile than it is to make an angry face, like,
Of course, there's more muscles.
in drama
To-
class,
Mhm.
you go through all the facial expressions to practice, when you're doing a scene, and angry, and I could do sad because of my big bottom lip. I could pout really well, and I had practice. But anger was hard for me to do. Like,
I hear you. I do hear you.
teaching Katie facial expressions is one thing we're supposed to be doing, and I'm like, okay, angry. And Anna's looking at me like,
Mom, are you okay?
she'll go, sorry, Chris. She'll go,
Are you
I'm
pooping?
like, no, I'm trying to be angry. And she goes,
Yeah, that's a pooping face.
yeah, totally. And I'm like,
Oh, I love kids.
I really understand that. I don't know what it is about that, but I do get it.
Yep.
I kind of same deal.
yeah,
I don't know. It's like you don't want to agree with
you
it.
use fewer muscles when you
Well,
smile.
you don't want to agree with the attitude. It's like I think it's a spirit.
I
of it.
actually, like whenever I was on the worship team at my last church, and I tend to be intense in worship. I just get really involved, and so
She gets really involved in
face
anything.
Tends to like get lines right here, because I'm like, you know, like most of the time I'm just like
you're in the zone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my muscles here will hurt all the time, and I'll have two
No.
lines after worship, like, and it takes a while for it to go away. And I'm like, I'm gonna get wrinkles there. I'm like, stop.
Yeah, you are.
So I try to soften my face in worship and be like, look more at peace and excited.
Well, like you're actually
But it's
enjoying
like-
worship instead of the
But you know,
intense worship.
It's like I'm more of the intense, you know, get in, you know, I don't know, like
When you're in
proclamation kind of worship.
Are you like in that zone of, okay, you're like, Lord, what are we saying here?
Yes.
What are you wanting us to
Yes,
say
yes,
here?
yes. That's
See?
like my
I
whole
totally agree with
worship.
that.
That is
Yeah.
me. And normally I'm not the one that's all like serene during worship. I'm like, even on the serene moments in worship, I'm like, you know, exactly like, Lord, what do you want for right now in this moment? And so I always walk away with the angry lines is what I call them, the angry lines.
But those aren't angry lines.
But it's the lines that are also there when you're angry. I mean, you tend to like furrow your eyebrows whenever you're upset, and those are the lines that form. So I because I don't want to get wrinkles there, I multiple times in the middle of worship like, oh, I need to soften my face.
Because Melody, angry
raise my
worships.
eyebrows.
Angry worships.
I just say that's intense warfare. That's how you're
It is
wired.
intense. It is
That
intense
is,
warfare.
yes,
Yeah.
intense warfare.
It's a good way to put it.
They're wired in their worship to be that gentle breeze.
Yes.
And there are those of us who are wired
That's
to be
not
that
me.
strong wind.
That's
That's
a good description of it. I
Very
never
good
knew that.
description.
Strong wind.
Melody's
That has always been mine.
is good.
Even in the soft moments. Have you seen The More I Seek You or something? Which is very soft.
The more I seek you. God's like, don't seek me that hard. I'm right here.
But Elizabeth Park is the same way, though.
All right, number 2. Trying to get you guys out of here on time. Number 2, reach out with the appropriate touch. This is not a sexual offense class we're going over, so we're talking about a different touch. The thought behind it is that we send emails, we circulate memos, we make phone calls, we leave voicemails, we send faxes, and we communicate verbally all through the day. Oddly enough, in our hurried lives, it seems we have a lot of time for communication, but no time for a handshake, a high five, a pat on the shoulder. And this concept of slowing down for a hug is relatively new to a lot of us, especially in my generation and the people younger than us. However, we need to learn to embrace, literally, the idea of communicating
Authentically.
that one with our love for those in ministry with us. And here's a verse that goes with that, and this is great because the practical application, they go hand in hand. A man with leprosy came and knelt in front of Jesus begging to be healed. If you want to, you can make me well again, he said. Moved with pity, Jesus touched him. There's that word, touched him. He says, I want to, he said, be healed. And instantly the leprosy disappeared and the man was healed. That's in Mark 1:40 and 42. The practical application is this. Give some thought to the verse above. A person who had contracted leprosy was put out to the city to a life of exile. We know that. Yet, interestingly enough, the word touch in this verse means more than just a brush or a handshake. It means to fasten or to lay hold of. So more than a handshake, it was an affectionate embrace, and that's what Jesus did.
Interesting.
Pretty cool, huh?
That's
So
awesome.
Jesus wasn't scared, even if he just reached out to give the guy a handshake with leprosy, that he was going to contract it. More like, I'm going to embrace you. Like, I'm the
How
Son of God.
healing is
Yes,
that,
very
though?
healing.
You know, like. just
Well, think about it.
emotionally, too.
The guy would have been healed by Jesus with either a touch of the hand, which
Or just a
would be
word.
a handshake, or a word, yeah. A handshake, which a handshake says, hey, welcome, hi, how are you? Versus an embrace. That was probably his first hug in a very, very, very long time, maybe ever. And that doesn't just say, hey, welcome, hi, how are you? It's, I love you, I care for you. A lot more than just a handshake. Pretty cool, huh?
Leprosy, you get it?
Oh, yeah, they were, that's why they.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Or was it more like blood to blood contact?
Well,
Like
I
you have to
don't-
have an open wound or something to
I don't
get
I
it?
thought it was blood to, I mean, it was
Kinda like
bodily
AIDS.
fluid to bodily fluid.
But they
Or
because
open sores, if you touched an open you know, where the flesh
Yeah.
is feeling.
Because
I
there's
think that
not,
also was in the
there's
dirt
not
leprosy.
any
of
cure
the-
to
where
it,
they
right?
lived. It kind of was in the dirt where they lived.
No
That's what I've
cure.
heard.
Yeah,
So that
I think I've
no
heard the
leprosy.
same thing as Cindy. Like that's why they had to be in exile. Like I think I've even done studies before of that there were actually leprosy camps. Like
Yeah.
people would be
There's a
outside of the
Hawaiian
city
island.
living in their own. Yeah.
There's an island in Hawaii that's part of the islands.
Oh.
Malachi.
Huh.
It's not Malachi. It's the M one.
It would. So
It
it's
was-
a touristy island too, and they have a
It
village
was
of lepers.
originally a leprosy island. That's where they sent all the lepers, and then it became the unwanted. And I think the lepers started being healed or something. I don't know the
Wow.
entire story, but I know it started as a
Leprosy's
leper colony.
Rare these days, right? Or is it in other
It's not
countries
now.
still?
I mean, that island is.
Well, I
not.
mean, like in the world.
I think it's curable now.
I think
Okay.
I think there's a lot more ways to cure leprosy. But just to know that Jesus healed this guy by just saying, "Hey, I am willing, be healed." That could have been it. Instead, he hugged the guy. That's really great. So number 3, look him in the eye and give the nod. Okay, don't zone out. Look him in the eye and give him a nod, but maintain eye contact as you speak and listen to other people. Some say that eyes are the window to the heart. So I don't know rather that's true, but I do know that people can read your sincerity by the way you look at them. So a verse in this one is Proverbs 15:30. Yeah, go cross-eyed with them. Can you look into my heart now?
Oh my God.
Proverbs 15:30 says, "A twinkle in the eye delights the heart. Good news refreshes the body." And the practical application is this: maintaining eye contact shows interest in the person you're talking to. The first time I actually spoke in front of a large audience, I was nervous beyond all nervous. I still get nervous when I talk in front of large audiences. But I remember as I was talking, there was this, I don't know. Melody says when I'm nervous and I'm talking, you know that I'm nervous because I'm talking really fast. Like really fast.
Like,
Like
I have to
So
like
right
give
there.
him. I have to give him signals.
But once I finally get going, I start slowing down. I become more confident. But the first time I was speaking in front of a large crowd, I'll never forget, like this guy was sitting on the front row and he was taking notes, but he looked at me the whole time. So it was like I was in this whole congregation I'm teaching to, I was really teaching only to him, and that made me feel a little bit better. So eye contact is a very, very, very important thing. It gives a lot of feedback to the person who's talking to you. So remember to provide responsive feedback to the person you're communicating with. A nod here, a nod there, eye contact. Works great. Moving along. Number 4, use gestures and be animated. Lee, it's okay to talk with your hands. It's okay to be Italian. The thought is that use your arms when you talk. God didn't stitch your wrist to your legs, okay? For those of you who already do this, there's a difference between helpful gesturing and flailing. Okay? Romans 12:11, never be lacking in zeal or passion, but keep your spirit fervor serving the Lord. And then practical application is this: if you have zeal and energy, you've just got to move. That's me. Try communicating once or twice this week without talking. Just use your face and hands and energy. Okay? So let's do some charades. What kind of responses are you going to receive? I don't know.
That's odd.
It would be odd. Number 5, slow down and smell the roses. The thought behind this is to balance number 4 above. And the bottom line is that the world will continue to spin even if you stop pushing it. So you need to slow down. My confession is that this is probably one of the hardest ones for me. Is I feel like I'm sometimes constantly in a rush and I put others at odds when I'm just hurrying around them. And so I have to slow down, include others, listen to others, talk with others. Just slow down. Jeremiah 2 verse 25 in the Message Bible says, slow down, take a breath. What's the hurry? Why wear yourself out? Just what are you after anyway?
That's a cool verse.
Sometimes we do have to slow down. The practical application is this: when we run around like crazy, it can set the mood and the atmosphere to be tense, even though we're not meaning for it to be tense. It can hurt the performance of our team and even ourselves. It can also cause a chain reaction. So this week, stay calm and slow down. Like I said, this is one of the things I technically have to work out a lot. It's because I get stressed out a lot when there's a lot going on at one time. All right, we're going to do a quick little evaluation. You guys do this. Match the feelings with the proper moment. So in these next few blanks, I'm going to read these paragraphs. You either place an A for telling a lie, B for frustrated, C for bored, or D for grieving. Just evaluate it yourself. There's no really right or wrong answers. This is for you to evaluate nonverbal communication. So here we go. 7-year-old Ashley walked into the room with her eyes downcast. She moved slowly to her chair and she slumped down. When her teacher asked her to get the crayons from the cupboard, she didn't seem to know how to do it. Was she telling a lie? Was she frustrated? Was she bored? Or was she grieving? This is you evaluating nonverbal cues. Obviously, again, it'll definitely be a little bit different in the moment. There's no right or wrong answers. All right. 5th grader Stephen was talking more rapidly than usual, fidgeting and looking around the room as he rambled on. He seemed nervous about something, but the sincere expression on his face set the teacher at ease. Then Stephen walked up for a hug. Telling a lie, frustrated, bored, or grieving.
This is hard.
It is hard.
Hold on, don't go.
Do you have the answers?
No, don't have the answers. This is for you guys to think about.
Okay. Hold on.
Don't overthink it.
No.
It's okay.
Grieving is a very strong
Here's
word
the
for
clue right
something
here.
that is
The
not
sincere
like
expression on the face of the teacher. That's the clue.
Well, and then this one,
Cindy's really breaking this down. She's like, this is the clue.
telling the lie.
Don't Sherlock Holmes it.
Go the others.
All right, here we go. Junior high student Sally let her eyes wander off in the distance. She sighed heavily, stretched, and crossed her arms. If you keep picking at your fingernails like that, they'll begin to hurt, her teacher said. Which one was she?
I got it. All right.
All right, and the last one is this. Marcus in the 4th grade Sunday school class kept looking directly into the teacher's eyes, repeating what he already said. He also seemed to be invading his teacher's space, inching closer still.
That's
Okay,
it.
none of those apply.
No.
Because I'm looking at that going, he needs a hug. That's
He
all
needs
I
a
can say
hug.
when I see that.
Well,
No.
he might be frustrated, and that's why he keeps on saying the same thing over and over again. I don't know.
Like I said, there's really no right or wrong answer. It's just a little quiz for you guys to think about.
Those are hard.
Those are hard.
Okay.
All right, to wrap that up, just to sum it up for you guys, when picking up on nonverbal cues, make sure that you scan from head to toe, okay? You'll never know where you'll find the most critical clue.
Oh,
Cute.
come on.
Cue, clue, same thing. But don't judge a book or a person by its cover. Melody had to remind me of that this morning.
Mess people up.
Our physical appearance and body language always provides a clue, but seldom definite answers. We were actually talking about that this morning, about women putting on makeup. I know it's kind of weird, but it works. All right, and then the last one to sum it up is look for consistent combination of clues. So if you're on the right track, the signs could point to the same direction. If not,
True.
you're in
I
the
would
wrong
agree with that.
wrong way.
Look for consistent combination.
Got to.
And
And
That
listening to the
sounds-
Holy Spirit. Because
Listen to the Holy Spirit.
will confirm.
Lock.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, last section, number 9 of teamwork is entitled Bronze, Silver, or Platinum. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute.
Gold?
There's no gold. All right, the author of this book series, this book that we've been going through in a series is Leadership Essentials for Children's Ministry. He says this, here's what I know. A group of disconnected individuals meeting once a month will not outperform a team of leaders serving side by side with one another, building relationships with one another week in and week out. That would be like trying to win a World Series by changing the players every week. It's just not going to happen. Yes, I know.
Okay.
So here's your first blank. In short, we need one another. We need one another. So here's a little thing for you guys to do really quick, kind of like what you did in the last section, a little evaluation. It's a small list of one another's from the Bible. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the greatest, rate yourself, not our team, yourself, based on each verse, and try to stick with one place, like home, church, work, whatever. So, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, love one another. How well are you at loving one another? Be devoted to one another. Accept one another. Greet one another with affection. What about instructing one another? Melody's pretty good at instructing. No, you need to do this.
I'm very lucky.
Here's one. Serve one another. Bear with one another in love. Be kind and compassionate to one another. Forgive one another. It's a big one. It does take time. Wisely admonish one another. Encourage one another daily.
You skipped one.
Build up one another. Spur one another on in doing good. And then keep meeting with one another. So basically, your final blank for this part of your evaluation is that we can't do any of these things if there is no other to do them with. What'd you put? 1. That's worse too. All right, we're going to go over, your next blank is successful. Together as a team, we can be successful. We're going to break successful down and learn exactly what that means of being successful. So the first S in successful is share a common vision. As long as we share a common vision, we can all go in the same direction. That's kind of the vision of Sojourn Church, to make disciples who make a difference. And the children's ministry is no exception. It's probably even more vital. Proverbs 22:6, which I think is the theme verse for the children's ministry, is train or raise up a child in the way they should go, so that when they're older, it's not going to leave them. The U in successful is understand one another's weaknesses. When you're in a group, do you play up the negative or produce the positive? Here's a short story to go with that. A man was in the hospital recovering from a fall from his roof. He was looking up at his wife and said, "Wanda, you've always been there for me. You really have. When I flunked the 10th grade, you were there. When I wrecked my dad's car, you were there. When I got fired from the plant, you were there. When I lost all of my savings, you were there. And now I've broken my arm and my leg from falling off of the roof, and you were there. Wanda, I just want you to know that you've been nothing but bad luck to me." There are at least 2 ways to look at a team member's contribution. You can either choose to see it in the best light possible or downplay the weaknesses. You can focus on what's strong, or you can nitpick at his or her performance.
Wrong?
Strong.
Not wrong.
Strong or wrong. Yeah.
Right, you can focus on what's wrong. I mean, like in that,
wrong?
everything's
Yeah.
right, but the present
Oh.
thing that happened was
Wrong.
not right,
So it
and
was
that's
wrong.
all he was
No,
looking
it's really wrong, babe.
at. It is
Or
wrong.
you can focus on what's wrong and nitpick.
Yeah. You can focus on what is wrong. This is actually the part that I didn't have someone proofread. So I'm sorry. All right. So in most cases, the strength of others will make up for the weaknesses of one. The strength of others can make up the weaknesses in one. The C in successful is communicate goals clearly. This falls actually on all of us. So when the time comes to find a replacement due to sickness or an emergency, it takes clear communication with your teammates, your supervisor, or someone to take your place if you need to reschedule for work. And as leaders of the children's ministry, it falls on us to clearly communicate when we see someone going against the tide. So an example of that is someone leaving the room without asking permission from a supervisor, someone who is a no-call, no-show, even a male changing a diaper, which is not allowed at all either. We need to address the issue as quickly as possible instead of letting it just go on, because the longer we let it go on, the harder it is to correct. So we just need to calmly and yet clearly talk to that person about what they were doing and how it was wrong. The principle really also falls on me as your leader, that I really need to communicate to you guys as my leaders and the rest of my team as clearly and as much as possible, instead of hoping that you can read my mind.
Oh, please don't do that.
As a leader, you got to. You've got to constantly. So here's something that I've learned while being just a children's pastor for the 3-4 years that I've been one, is that church leadership experts always encourage that when you're casting vision, you need to cast it often and repeatedly. You need to cast it often and repeatedly. You can't just do it once and then hope that everything's gravy, as Ellen would say. Yeah, you have to constantly and repeatedly cast your vision. The C in successful is communicate regularly. So we talked about communicate goals clearly. Well, now you need to communicate regularly. If you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there. If you don't know where you're going, any road is going to take you there. And basically, I just need people to talk with me. We need to train our team members to talk with you guys as supervisors, because if it's broken and you don't know about it, we can't fix it. So if something's going on in a classroom, we got to fix that also. All right, the E in successful. What happened?
Nothing. We're
So
having
the
a
first
discussion.
one?
Oh,
The first one we just
That's not.
y'all are awesome. Oh. The E in successful, evaluate and adjust. Evaluate and adjust. As a team, we need to evaluate ourselves and make any adjustments as needed. We kind of talked about that with the bridges and how they were flexible. This principle comes from a unique right-handed baseball player. No matter what happened, he would always hit the ball between first and second base. The opposing team learned of his habit, and the entire field would adjust when he came to bat. They got him out every single time. And if only the batter would have learned to adjust, he could have hit several indoor home runs because of the opposing team shifting to an entire one side of the field. So we need to evaluate how our classrooms are as opposed to a year ago. How are they this year? How are they this month? Have things increased or decreased, and what can we do to make things better this year? One of the things, it's small, but it's also large at the same time. One of the things we've done is we've brought in a lot of new different toys. You know, we took out a lot of some old ones, and we brought in some new ones. Some of them looked bad. In the Adventure Zone, the dollhouse, the little play dolls that are in there. Yeah, the little plastic people. There was a grandpa that was so bad it looked like a zombie.
Yeah.
The paint was chipped off of him. He literally looked like the grandpa had died and raised from the dead, and it looked like a horror film. So we threw him away.
Yeah, but you also brought in like skill building.
Yeah.
For children who aren't traditional developing, you know,
Yeah.
like Elijah or Katie.
Mhm.
You brought in stuff that I was like, oh, I've seen that before. That's what we use in school, and that's you know a development
Yeah.
type thing. So that was really cool. So yeah.
Yep, just evaluating and adjusting. So like I said, bringing in new toys is a small feature, but it's a big feature at the same time. All right, the S in successful is share a common direction. We're talking about sharing a common goal, common vision. Well, what about a direction? Typically, people who share a common direction get to where they're going a lot more quickly. Here's something that's pretty interesting. Comparing a team to a team of geese, they fly in a V formation, and that creates a lift to the geese behind them. The flock has a 71% greater lift than flying alone. That's pretty cool. So as they're flying together in a V formation, they're producing lift for the geese who are behind them. And so basically the question is, who are we providing a lift for today by moving in a common direction with our team? And the leader of the flock doesn't stay the leader very long. I don't know if y'all noticed that either. So when it gets tired, it actually falls back into the V formation and another goose takes its place. So good leadership actually does that. Godly leadership does that. It will train up someone under them who can instantly take over at a moment's notice and just let the team begin to carry the load, and it's as if nothing ever changed. And your next blank here is that the team is responsible, not just one person. The team is responsible, not just one person. The next S in a successful team is show loyalty. We talked about loyalty in the last section. So here's another quick little funny story. Two men are riding a tandem bike up a steep hill. Why two men are riding a tandem bike? I have no idea. But two men are riding a tandem bike up a steep hill, and they started up, and it proved to be a very steep climb. When they finally reached the top, the front guy says, "Man, that was tough. What a climb." And the other said, "Yeah, it was. If I hadn't kept the brakes on the whole way, we'd have rolled backwards." We need to show loyalty by being willing to take our foot off the brake and surrender our individual agenda to the team's agenda. I'm going to say that again because it's actually really good. We need to show loyalty to our team by willing to take our foot off the brake and surrender our individual agenda to the team agenda. We can help team members let go of the brakes by constantly reminding ourselves of the principle that flows from Proverbs 12:10. Basically, it calls us to love each other like brothers and sisters and honor one another above ourselves. The F in successful team is focus on the Lord. I know that's kind of like an easy spiritual answer, but it simply means making time during our day for pausing and lifting up our heart in awareness of Christ's abiding presence within us. Sometimes we get so busy we even forget to do that, and we sometimes forget that it's His ministry and those are His children, and our talents and gifts are really His that He gave us. So it's all His to begin with. Jesus said in John 15:14, "Abide in me and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me." So we will literally become fruitless if we do not abide in Christ.
Wow.
Literally.
There you go.
The U also in successful is unite with a natural fit. Unite with a natural fit. There's a kind of chemistry that develops among individuals who bond and solidify the team. When a person is causing you fits, you're probably dealing with a mismatch in the chemistry between the two of you. So it's always great to build relationships with people in your team, that y'all share common interests, y'all are just a good fit, and when y'all work together in a classroom, it just clockwork. It's awesome. An article in Harvard Business Review said this: transforming a good company into a great one includes getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. In other words, build team chemistry. Finishing up successful, the L in successful is listen to one another. Going back to that communication skills. The biggest obstacle in a person's communication is not the inability to say what's on your mind. It's the inability to listen as the other person says what's on his or her mind. Many of us are distracted by what we plan to say next instead of actually listening to the person talking. So often we all think of our response while someone talks rather than us truly listening for a response. And then Proverbs 18:13 actually says to answer before listening is both shameful and foolish. To answer before listening is both shameful and foolish. There's no room for arrogance on a successful team. It's one of your next blanks. But there's lots of room on the team for people who know more and can do things better than you and me. The question is, will we gather those people up? Or will our self-esteem allow them to gather those people up? There are definitely people out there who are more talented than you and I. Sometimes it's a humbling thing to actually admit that, but when you have those type of people on your team, it increases your team.
Yeah,
All right.
Some people feel like, if that somebody is brought in like that they're actually being pushed out.
Yeah, and there is that opposing end where, just what you said, when someone does come in that is more talented or more outgoing, that the people who aren't might feel pushed out, but what a more encouraging way to then raise them up to come up with them.
Well, it has to do with how the leader handles it.
It's true.
So, and you honestly do a great job.
Amen.
Well, thanks, Cindy. Say it again. Stop.
Yeah, he brings in people, where you just say, oh, I can do it, and he brings in other people to do it, but you keep the unity and give everybody value.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I try. Thank you so much. That means a lot. All right, so at the beginning of this section, wrapping it up with this one, the bronze, silver, or platinum, it's the bronze represents a beginner level, the silver represents an average level, and the platinum represents a professional level. So we are in a competition. Our children, our completion. Yeah, we're in a competition.
No, competition.
We are in a competition. Yeah, sorry for the misspellings, guys.
We are in
Y'all are totally in. Y'all are totally my guinea pigs. Yeah, no, we really are in a competition, not with other churches, not with other ministries, but with ourselves. That's your next blank. We're in a competition with ourselves. And every other use of time that a child or adult leader has in this world, we're in competition with. And the question is, to know what their competition is this next blank. Are they getting their absolute best? So we're competing against ourselves to be better with the time that we have with children and other adult leaders in this world.
It threw you off because he had a
Yeah, I threw you off because it was a misspelling.
Don't worry about the misspelling.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let me try to say it again. Okay, so we're in competition not with other churches, not with other ministries, but with ourselves, and with every other use of time that a child or an adult leader has in this world. So they go out, kids are watching Disney Channel, kids are watching Nickelodeon. They're getting the best of the best out there.
The world is competing.
Yes, and so when they come into our care, are we giving them our best? Now, we're not necessarily like, oh, well, we've got to be better than Disney. Oh, we've got to be better than this or that. And, oh, we've got to make stuff that is better than that. It's really just us giving our best for Christ.
Mm-hmm. Don't try to compare yourself with what they're having to struggle with. Just be the best.
Be the best you can. That's it. All right. You guys got 2 more blanks on here, and we are done. We'll close in prayer. Sure, we may start out as bronze material, but in time, we can be platinum. I believe with all my heart that the children's ministry at Sojourn can become a platinum ministry. No one can build a successful team overnight. It doesn't take just skill, but it also takes time. And then the very last blank here is that we need to have We need to have chemistry, commitment, consistency in our team.
How do you say that?
Yeah.
Competency.
Competency. Yeah.
Competent.
And we'll have the best leaders. We can, I'm messing up because I'm not reading it right. We will have to be the best leaders we can be and never stop learning and growing. One of the things I've learned, just again being a leader in a church, is that if you're not going to school to continue to learn, one of the things that you need to do to continue to better yourself is school yourself and read books to improve yourself. Watch Bible studies online, obviously attend church services, grow yourself, learn with yourself if you're not going to school to be better, I guess, if that makes any sense.
If you're not willing to be teachable, you will not be an effective leader.
Say it again.
If you're not willing to be teachable, you will not be an effective leader.
If you're not willing to be teachable, you're not willing to be an effective leader.